Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jen Washington. This is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I would like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Before we get started, I just want to shout out to our good brother Cam, who is the host of Millennial Relationships Unlocked. He joined us last week as a special guest interview, so shout out to him. All right, let's get started. On this episode, we're going to talk about the shooting of Walter Wallace, the shooting of Marcellis Stinnette. Also, Sergeant John Mattingly, one of the officers responsible for the death of Breonna Taylor, is now suing her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. So we will talk about that and the details of the grand jurors making statements now. Finally, we will talk a bit about Lil Wayne. On October 26, 2020, Walter Wallace, a 27-year-old African-American man, was fatally shot by the police in Cobbs Creek, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Two Philadelphia Police Department officers arrived in the area to respond to a domestic dispute. According to the family, they called 911 to summon an ambulance that would help them calm Walter Wallace, who was experiencing a psychological episode. But the police officers showed up before the healthcare professionals could, and by then, Wallace was weaving through traffic holding a knife. The family also stated that Wallace had been taking lithium, a mood stabilizer used to treat bipolar disorder. The video of the incident captures audio of one officer telling the other to shoot him before opening fire. At the time, Wallace was approximately a car and a half length away. The officers claim that Wallace advanced toward them with the knife, but the family disputes that account. Several videos recorded from bystanders show at least one officer shouted for Wallace to put the weapon down. Drop the knife is what they stated. Both officers have been suspended from active patrol but remain on desk duty. For several nights after the shooting, hundreds of protesters took to the streets to demonstrate against what they saw as excessive force by the police against a person of color. It's really unfortunate that this incident occurred the way that it did. The young man was having a mental episode and needed help. Could the situation have been de-escalated a different way? This next police shooting occurred in Waukegan, Illinois on October 20th. 19-year-old Marcellis Denton was fatally shot by a police officer shortly before midnight. Marcellis was a passenger in the vehicle. His girlfriend was driving the vehicle, and they were stopped by the police. The police officer attempted to arrest Marcellis on an outstanding warrant. So at this moment, when the officer announces that he's going to arrest him for this warrant, the girlfriend drives off. This part is seen on the video that has been circulating from the police dashboard camera and surveillance cameras. The car ends up crashing into a building. Once the car is stopped, the officer begins to shoot into the vehicle. Both Marcellis Denton and his girlfriend, Tafara Williams, were unarmed. I'm going to play a clip for reference.
Turning now to the death of a teenager at the hands of police in Illinois. Newly released police camera footage reveals some of what happened just before an officer fired the deadly shots last week in Waukegan. 19-year-old Marcellis Stinnette was killed and his girlfriend Tafara Williams wounded. Williams says they did nothing wrong. Police say they were unarmed, but they also say that the two tried to hit an officer with their car. That officer has since been fired. Adriana Diaz now reports.
Body camera footage shows an officer approach Tafara Williams and Marcellis Stinnette in a parked car and identify them by name.
You're Marcellis, right? Yeah, you're under arrest, man.
Why?
Because I said. Marcellis, you're under arrest.
He's under arrest for what?
Because you got a warrant.
The officer didn't say what the warrant was for, and Marcellis' girlfriend, in the driver's seat, takes off.
Hey. And they just ran me over.
At one point, the car reverses off camera. Then you hear a crash and roughly 6 gunshots. Only after the shooting did that second officer turn on his body camera.
I was right behind you. You almost tried to run me over.
The police department says that officer's life may have been in danger.
The vehicle that he was investigating began to reverse towards the officer.
Williams said she lost control of the car. Family members joined an emotional press conference Wednesday where Stinnette's grandmother broke down. Attorneys for Williams questioned the timing of the body camera activation.
This officer had his oh crap moment after the shooting and pushed a button. So he knew to push the button and shortly thereafter say, "You tried to run me over."
According to the mayor's office, the officer was fired in part for failing to properly activate his body camera, a breach of department policy. Williams is in the hospital recovering from gunshot wounds to the abdomen and hand.
I told them, please don't shoot. I have a baby. We have a baby. We don't want to die.
Wow. So this officer shot into the car 6 or 7 gunshots. After the car stopped, they found that he did not adhere to procedure and he failed to activate his body camera. And so that was part of the reason why he was terminated. This just keeps happening. The girlfriend, Tafara Williams, who survived her injuries, is being represented by civil rights attorney Ben Crumpt and Antonio Ramanucci, who also represented the families of George Floyd and Daniel Prude. The attorney said that the officer's firing was the first step in police accountability, but they would press ahead with their own investigation. Such a sad case. Totally could have prevented the death of this young man. Yes, they should not have drove off when being stopped by the police, but that definitely did not warrant them being shot down in the street in their car in that manner. An officer involved in the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor has filed a civil suit against the 26-year-old's boyfriend for emotional distress, assault, and battery on the night she was killed. Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly is stating that he experienced severe trauma, mental anguish, and emotional distress because of Kenneth Walker's actions on March 13th. The timing of this lawsuit is really interesting. We may recall that last month, Kenneth Walker filed a lawsuit against the city and the police department. His attorneys argued that he's immune from being arrested and charged again because of Kentucky's stand your ground law. And it was just a matter of a week and a half ago that Mattingly appeared on the news discussing the case and pointing blame of the death of Breonna Taylor toward Kenneth Walker. Additionally, 2 of the grand jurors have come forward to the public. The 2 sat down with CBS, Gayle King. So according to them, Daniel Cameron did not give them other options in the charges that they could consider. He mentioned that there were 6 possible homicide charges which the jurists could have considered had Cameron brought it to them. They were told that none of the additional charges were being brought because they would not be able to make them stick. It's unusual that the grand jurors will come forward like this. Of course, their identities were hidden for their protection, but to come out against the Attorney General is huge to me, and perhaps this may lead to something where another change can be made in this case. Rapper Lil Wayne met with President Donald Trump to discuss the president's plan for Black Americans. Lil Wayne praised Trump in a tweet and shared a photo of the two giving the thumbs up. Donald Trump's Platinum Plan is geared toward Black voters and includes a number of broad initiatives such as building neighborhoods with the highest policing standards, expanding school choice, improving economic opportunities for Black Americans. He unveiled the plan in late September, though he did not specify what those economic initiatives for Black Americans would entail. Earlier this month, rapper Ice Cube took a meeting with the Trump administration in reference to the plan for Black Americans also. The White House press secretary told reporters that Trump met with Carter in Miami after Carter's team had reached out to the White House. What are our thoughts on this? Well, I guess it's a little surprising. I wonder what are the true motives of Lil Wayne since, 2016, where he had an interview with Nightline and he made these comments stating that he did not feel connected to the Black Lives Matter movement, and just really odd comments about the whole Black Lives Matter, which sort of gave the impression that he really didn't, care to get involved with politics. And then here he is, days to the election, making this gesture with Donald Trump. It just seems really odd. Or is it odd? It might be strategy. It might be very intentional, actually. Whichever the case, let's not use this as a distraction to what we really need to be doing on November 3rd, and that is going to exercise our right to vote. It is super important to vote. I'm going to drop this episode early just so that this hits the waves before the 3rd, because it is just so important, and I want to send my message to everyone that we really need to exercise our right to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. Just do it.
So at this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude this episode. I would again like to thank you for listening to Woke by Accident, and we would also like to invite you to follow us on our social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast, and on Twitter, it is Woke by. Again, we are available on all the platforms for podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, share, like, tell a friend. We do appreciate the feedback and the support. And every time you listen, we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again and take care.
Oh,